She has many accolades. Thank you for recording, Deja. But we know that she is a spiritual director. She's a mediator. She's an esthetician. She makes people beautiful. She is beautiful inside and out. She lives a lifelong learner, she calls herself, with a deep passion for spirituality, psychology, sexuality, and restorative justice. So thank you, Mel. We'll let you take over. I'll shut down my slides and we'll give you the floor. Welcome.
Good morning. So as I'm getting my slides up, I'm going to just plant a seed. And the seed is quite simple. As we go into this conversation, I would plant the possibility that I'm meaning to touch you. I am meaning to bristle you or have you have an aha or a moment. And so my invitation is to simply notice your resistance when it comes up, or notice when that feels like a yes, you're saying something that really connects with me, or oh, that bristled me. And rather than living for the yeses and dismissing the bristle, be curious about both. Be equally curious about the bristle as you are about the yes. You name something that resonates with me. And know this, your response to what I say is yours. You can own that fully. I will not take it from you or take it personally by you, and I'm open to whatever that may be. So with that, let's talk about the spirituality of consent. Ask the question, when did we stop listening to one another? And I would suggest that it was the moment after we stopped listening to ourselves. In short, this idea of self-abandonment comes when we stop trusting our instincts, we start people-pleasing, we start hiding parts of ourselves. If people knew me, they wouldn't like me. Very common. Perfectionism. I better do this right in the first time. Mistakes are not allowed. And that we take mistakes and we make them into a story. We give them meaning rather than part of the learning process. We give them meaning as a reflection of our less than or not enoughness. Self-criticism and judgment become lenses for which we live our lives. We stop honoring our own needs, and we then are not listening to honor another's. Oh, we got to push those feelings down because only certain feelings are allowed. And the best part about that is you may think that there's a universal code for what, quote, good emotions are, but there isn't. There isn't. So what one thinks is okay, somebody else does not. But we stop communicating. We fear feeling. We stop acting according to our values because we flip into a different operating system, which I'll talk about in a moment. And then we create codependent relationships for which my okayness is based on your thoughts, perceptions, and feelings of me, and vice versa. I am only okay if you are okay. And we stop standing up for ourselves and stop standing as ourselves, which is very, very key to this idea of abandonment. Put simply, and I've talked about this passionately and in depth in past services, are you operating from a system of fear or love? And now today we're going to look at that spiritual living, that spiritual style of living as it relates to our consent operating system. Are we operating out of fear or love? What is driving us? And know that takes us stilling ourselves in the moment. How powerful and potent is the spiritual pause for which we simply stop and feel instead of react or act. Stop and feel. We go into our being and we say, hey, what are you? What's going on here? Love is the ultimate divine operating system. We agree. Fear, however, for me is not the bad guy. Fear too is aiming to guide us back to love and flag when we are out of our operating system in our center. So fear too, and I would suggest that this might be a different perspective on the all good, all God. that fear too is aiming to bring us back to love. But if we say, "Ooh, fear, you are bad, you are wrong, you better go, everything's okay all the time," we stop listening to that powerful force that's saying, "There's another way." So for me, in some of my poetry, I write that I dance with fear. I let fear lead and I feel the steps of it until I can dance those and move with it on my own, and then fear ceases to exist. So I do not utilize fear in my life as the operating system, but when it comes up, it's like, all right, not let's fight, let's dance. What do you want to teach me? What are you trying to show me? Where are you, fear? But that fear then sometimes ends up being what leads us or what we move away from. And I've talked about this in what I would call a passive way. I want to talk about it in a painfully direct way this morning. There's a book called The Mystic's Heart, fantastic book by Wayne Teasdale. He says this quote in it, and it changed my life. "It is not what we do, it is how well and fast we integrate with what is. It is not what we do. It is how well and fast we can integrate with what is." So I want to talk about fragmentation. Spiritual bypassing is when we create a structure of hierarchy and we say, these are the good emotions. Ascension, I can just move past any of these hard things. Love, peace, joy, flow. And then we say, hey, resistance, sadness, rage, grief, hurt, anger. Anger, for which there's 142 kinds of anger known. I'm saying it might have a point. And most certainly how we act of that matters, but that we feel it is vital. So in a model where we move from spiritual bypassing to authentic healing, wholeness, we start to look at the human experience, which was spoken earlier in this very service. I am both perfect and human. I am both divine and in this challenging space of this human experience. And so it moves from hierarchical, where there's value to certain emotions and resistance to others, to this human experience is going to be one heck of a ride. How fast and well can I integrate with what is? Can I notice what's below that fear? What's below that anger? Am I willing to look at that shadow? And the belief then from this authentic healing place is that all emotions are sacred, valuable in their context, and carrying deep wisdom for us. The action then accepts and embraces the full spectrum of the human experience, for which many, many mystics, Rumi and Cahill Gabrin, write brilliantly about how joy and sorrow are inseparable, love and pain are inseparable. These experiences, these polarizations of life then become what challenge us to stretch and grow, or what squeeze us in, but all back to the center of what is love. And then are we operating from it? So today I want to deconstruct consent, because when I'm asked to talk about restorative justice or equity, diversity, and inclusion, or developing community, I would say that I sat first with this idea that we want to have change, but we want to stay comfortable. And those two things are painfully at odds with one another, my friends, painfully at odds. So for the last whole year of my life, I sat with this idea of what would it take for us to sit with discomfort. And I could not feel into the answer until finally I did. And that for me is deconstructing consent and moving back into a consent model, so that we begin to look at ourselves. And in that, we start to see these mirrored reflections in one another, and everything driving us back to these core, beautiful aspects of ourselves. So within, I feel like I'm doing a year's worth of talking within 15 minutes. So hopefully there's little nuggets you can get from this that can just plant a seed today. So the first thing with consent is that we move back to an invitation of looking at our own motives. You'll notice I did not write motive. When I'm working with my spiritual direction clients, what I notice is that I ask them to look for multiples of 3 at least. So looking with generosity at why you're doing or not doing something, and then come up with at least 3 reasons. We like the comfortable reason. We like the selfless reason. Yet we know that ask, the verb ask and take are actually intimacy building, as is working through challenges together. So when we know that, we can look and we can ask ourselves, what is my motive for this? And dig a little deeper into the multiplicity of that. You are a dimensional human. So you can paint a picture of yourself. I would call it the rose-colored glasses one. Or you can also remove your rose-colored glasses and always see yourself through this system of lack. Whatever that is, I'm inviting you to stretch it out and come up with 3 reasons why you're doing what you're doing. It's really important when we think about things like equity, diversity, and inclusion. Because oftentimes, as I've spoken about idiot compassion, our reasons for doing something actually need to be checked. We need to check what our motive is. And we need to work through a proper process of understanding our own motives and seeing those, not as good or bad, but simply there and driving us. We got to know who's in the car with us, so to speak. Then I want to slow down for a minute, because everything I'm talking about now is felt sense. And what I said in the beginning is that when did we stop listening to one another? And it's likely the moment after we stopped listening to ourselves. Our bodies were meant to be embodied. Our bodies were meant to be embodied. This is a human experience. We are spiritual beings, naturally, but we are in an adventure suit. We are in a body. And this human body tangibly tells us so much information, right? And I've invited in the past, and I've certainly heard other speakers speak to this, and what they're speaking to in meditation is moving back to, where do you feel things in your body? Think about where you feel tension or stress. Where does your anger show up physically? So we start to notice that this adventure suit, this body, is giving us data. This data is useful when we tap back into it and we give ourselves permission to feel. I want you to think about what your enthusiastic yes feels like. What does your enthusiastic yes in your body feel like? Where does your maybe show up in your body? Oh, I'm not really sure. Maybe I could. What is that maybe about? Where are you feeling that? What do you notice? And I've given a tool in the past that's called TFAB. If you can't tap into what you're feeling, maybe you can tap into a thought, or maybe you can tap into how you're acting or a belief. And tapping into the thought, the feeling, the action, or the belief can allow you to then unfold other data about those other centers. But that maybe, what is that about? And what does your no feel like? What does that no feel like? And not only is there this exploration of that, but there's also this wisdom. Once we tap into what our own feels like, what does it feel like to receive an enthusiastic yes from somebody else, or in community? Ooh. What does it feel like to receive the enthusiastic yes? I ask again. What does it feel like to encounter somebody's maybe? What do you do then? Oh, and this one's an interesting one. What do we do when we experience somebody else's no? And then the last piece that I want to bookend this literally lifetime long conversation into 15 minutes is this one idea. What meaning am I giving this? And I would layer this in, probably closest linking this to the 4 agreements. But we assume that other people give things the same meaning we do. And the smallest little tidbit example I have of this is working in a community and having two people planning a party. And one person, they talk to each other and they end up in conflict, and they end up in conflict because they found out that one person just really likes having parties. It's fun, it gives them entertainment. The other person, the reason for it was a deep sense of connection and community. They're both doing the same action. We are both planning a party, but their motives for doing it are completely different. And so that can be problematic when the meaning we give something is different than the meaning somebody else gives something. That in and of itself is not problematic. It is problematic when we assume what the other person's meaning of something is without checking, without talking, without risking relationship, without being vulnerable with what we feel that means. Can I express my wants, needs, and desires? I can tell you this. I have run circles for which people have angrily left the circle when asked to express their needs. Angry because they do not know at all what they need, or they've been told they're not allowed to have needs. They've been told maybe that that's wrong or bad. And what about desires? That sounds like a scandalous word. The first thing I would say about wants, needs, and desires is knowing yours will allow you to live an intentional life. And remember, our operating system when in divine flow is love. So you are operating from this higher system of love. That's the potent possibility we have. And then from there, imagine that higher guiding system of you with your highest good, determining what you want, need, and desire truly. And the other key piece that's painful and beautifully illustrated in the last song we heard is that your wants, needs, and desires, give them permission to change moment to moment. So we think about life in this fixed way that my want this moment needs to be my want 2 weeks from now. It does not. I simply have to be capable of communicating my wants, needs, and desires, noticing them and noticing how they change. And if we are living a life that is alive and awake and noticing and aware, we will change. We will change. And then those old systems that we've stuck to will become the elastic that holds us back or puts us in tension unless we give ourselves and one another permission to change moment to moment. In my work, I ask continuously, where is my power, my personal power? Am I giving it to another right now? Because I'd like to know. I'd like to know if I'm doing that. Then I'd like to assess why. When working with clients, I equally ask, where's your power right now? Are you trying to give it to me? Because I'm going to give it back to you. I'm going to put tension back into your experience and our work together so that you can feel that tension, because that's not a bad thing. Feel that tension. Where are you giving away your power in your life? What would stepping back into love as an operating system in your power feel like? Whew, could feel terrifying, but also exciting. I check what operating system I'm in. Is this fear? Is this love? And then I give myself permission to know it's likely both. Likely both moment to moment. Woo, fear and love are dancing. What about this? Ooh, this hurts. This is painful. This is joyful. All within the same moment. What is motivating me? At least 3 possibilities. And if they're all selfless ones, check yourself. Can I state an authentic, enthusiastic yes or no? And know that that is trust building. If we actually moved back to a system for which I could say no and have you say, thank you so much for taking care of yourself. And I could enthusiastically say yes, we are talking about potent possibility there. Trust is built in moments like that. And what meaning do I give this? And have I checked on the meaning for others? Boundaries, as Brene Brown says, is simply what is okay and not okay. We get so easily offended by assuming that what is okay for me and what is okay for you will be the same. It is not about the same. None of our powerful work of possibility and multiple paths and one divine space is going to have us acting, dancing, and moving all the same. And I like to think about that, if you're aware of dance styles, I like to think about it as the difference between line dancing, where our aim is to get everyone to move the same and step left and step right, and then ecstatic dance, which is a very beautiful, similar to chakra dance movement, which is here's the spiritual music and how do you move to it? And I'm going to be equally curious about how I move to that music as I am about how you move to that music. And it isn't about one way of dancing, because we are about making capacity within ourselves and within our world for different movements of that higher resonance of love to show up. Trust is not built in big sweeping moments. It's built in the tiny moments every day. It's built into our capacity to express our wants, needs, and desires. It's built into our capacity to exercise our sacred yes and our sacred no. So we're going to move into a time of meditation, and I'm going to share with you some of my own process writing on this topic. I'm going to invite you to come back to yourself. Notice what that idea feels like to you. The idea of moving back into your body, into your heart, the invitation to move back into the operating system of love, into our sacred yes and no. Back into desires and wants and needs, not surface level ones, my friends. Your soul's desires, wants, and needs. And I know for some of you, you will feel the energetic difference of that. And that is what a spiritual movement is about. The highest purpose calls us, but we're so busy on the surface, so fearful of that we miss that powerful, potent universes that are within us waiting to be explored. So now I invite you to still your minds, to still your heart, and to move into a time of meditation, to find your body, to allow yourself to either tune into my voice or tune out my voice, to ground into the earth, to breathe, to feel your breath flowing through your body, to invite that breath to circulate all of you, not just parts. To connect with the elements, rooting in earth, breathing in the air that is readily there, letting it dance within you, play, allowing it to fan the flame of your heart. And even if just a spark is there today, to touch on that spark or that warm coal and breathe the air in, listening to the call of the universe to awaken again. Allow water to metaphorically wash over you. And don't forget there's space. Space for all of you, not just parts, all of you. That water reminds us also that emotions are temporary. These are simply stimuli to remember to help you to love. Remember your body. When did you cut off the felt sense of yourself? The body calls us back. Listen. If I am out of alignment with my body, I cannot hear, no matter how you speak. And words will fall deaf on the vacant space I was meant to inhabit. Present in my body, with self, heart, mind, spirit, to be whole in my presence with another. If I am out of alignment with my body, I cannot do that. They will come knocking at an empty heart, or busy mind, or deaf ears, or projection of the whole, while I am off trying to be something other than me. The universe calls us home. Welcome home to yourself as you are, a beautiful and brilliant, endless blend of tensions and polarities, poles of you that pull you. But my loves, they do not pull you to break you, but to stretch you into being. Breathing now into the space, into the silence. When did we stop listening to one another? I imagine it happened shortly after we stopped listening to ourselves. Return again. Turn in and then out. The world needs you, not to be a role mate. I say again, not to be a role mate of assumed needs and projections, or for the fulfillment of your own surface projections from a place of fear. The world needs your heart. The world needs your soul awakened. And the universe is whispering, return. Return to the still, strong space that holds expansiveness for another. Return to your repressed heart and soul, and this time heal. Reach. Risk expansion. Risk feeling fully. Let yourself be touched. To light a candle is to cast a shadow.
Thank you, Mel. To end this part of the service, we're going to go into a song